In communication with Southern California, KHJ-TV Public Affairs presents Teen Talk. Studies indicate that approximately half of all high school students cannot name their congressional representatives. Many students cannot identify their senators and the Vice President of the United States. The LA City school curriculum has recently increased the required government class from 1 semester to 1 year.
Recently, the Los Angeles Board of Education added an additional government course to the curriculum. Their action was prompted by the shocking lack of civic knowledge in our public schools. Our graduating high school students don't know who is in government nor what they do. I conducted an informal poll in my 10th grade classes recently, and few, if any, of my students could correctly identify their senators or their congresspeople. The real shocker was the Vice President of the United States. No one knew Andrew Johnson. See, I knew I'd catch you. I'm Joseph Feinstein, and today on Teen Talk we've invited a panel of teens with sophisticated political views, and we are going to invite them to share their views on today's politics with us. Welcome, panel. Welcome to Teen Talk. I'm glad to see you here. Tell me, why do you think there are so many people that are so civically illiterate at a time when we really have to be quite sophisticated about politics? Mike, why don't you take that?
Well, I think it's basically because today's society is entertainment oriented. And most of us, like me, and we'd all like to watch something else, pretty much, like a girly movie or the A-Team or something.
Yeah, I'm aware of when Johnny Carson asks about, you know, how many people watched President Reagan's address that on a particular given night. It's almost like, you know, 3 people applaud, indicating that kind of thing. Why do you think so, Andrew?
Well, just following up on what Mike said, you know, the society we live in is very entertainment oriented with various TV shows devoting almost all time to say movies and the Oscars, that, you know, and things like that. And I think that there's not enough interest, and it's not the political scene, you know, the senators, Congress people. There's not enough interest generated. I don't think that anyone could say that they can read a newspaper from front page to last page. There's not enough interest on the society as a whole.
Okay, so no interest as far as you see it. How about you, David?
Well, I think Mike and Andrew have a very good point in that they're talking about the media orientation of this.
You sound like a politician right now.
Maybe someday. But another point that I think is really important, and is something my history teacher often comments on, and that is we often look at the past as history. We as students are often told at school, this is history, this is what it was about. But very, you know, seldom are we actually orientated to the present day policies, present day, you know, problems and so on. That's something my teacher at school
we never quite get there in history, do we? We never quite get to 1986 or 1987 or whatever the year may be.
I think it's very important that we do this, and I think that's something that the educational system often lacks.
I think your suggestion is a very important one, because a lot of people are always left hanging somewhere around 1933 or 1941, just before the outbreak of World War II, the end of that. Now, I know in our talk before that you guys are very much interested in politics, and I'm wondering what has spurred you on? What has given you the curiosity or the excitement about politics? What about for you, Heather?
Well, it just seems like there are so many problems nationally and internationally, you know, poverty and the threat of nuclear war and all sorts of, you know, there's a whole long list of problems that you could come up with. And everybody seems to be very apathetic about it, and I feel like somebody has to do something about it, because nobody's looking out for me other than myself. And if nobody's going to look out for me, then I better do something about it right now before it's too late.
Someone once said, I'm neither for nor against apathy. Think about that. What about you, Elise?
I guess I'm motivated partly by my own selfishness, is that I want our generation to survive. And I want us to go on and be profitable. And I think we can find the solutions if we're educated enough about the problems. We've got to really, as students right now, cultivate an interest in the political affairs and then go one step further in finding solutions for the problems.
Okay, Ben? Why do you care so much about politics?
I think because, as you say, a lot of people don't care. And I don't know whether...
You like to travel that different kind of road, do you think?
No, I don't think that I trust the people that do right now.
Very interesting. Tell me. Explain.
Well, not everyone that is involved in politics is necessarily I'm not going to say is necessarily qualified, but people in politics are not necessarily the people that I want or think are looking out for my best interests, or even the best people for the job. It's important for everyone, if they want things done, to be involved, I would think.
Well, that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. Putting political party aside, I know some of you are very conservative here, and some of you take a very liberal stance about your politics, but putting politics aside, are you happy about what politicians are doing, generally speaking? The Congress people, the President of the United States, the Vice President, are you happy about our politicians and the way they're handling themselves? Leslie?
A lot of times I don't think they are handling themselves very well. A lot of times they'll go for more what's going to get them elected rather than really representing the people and what the people want. But I think we are, pursuing democracy in our politics, but sometimes we stray off course a little bit.
In what way?
Sometimes with like political action committees and the lobbying they do for the senators, and sometimes our elected congressmen don't really represent the small amount of the people, what the people really want.
With that, someone once said there will never be complete equality until women help to make the laws. Other countries have had fabulous success with women leaders. Margaret Thatcher in England, Indira Gandhi in India, Golda Meir in Israel, and now Corazon Aquino in the Philippines. Panel, why have we been so slow in accepting a woman leader? Lisa, why do you think?
Well, in our society, we're very separating, and this is evident with the races. We had such a problem in integrating them into our society that I think we're still having a problem with women. What I think of as equality is when Sally Ride goes up in a missile or space shuttle, and no one makes a big deal about it.
Yeah.
Because even though she's a woman, it doesn't matter. She's just another astronaut.
Okay, all right. What do you think, Heather?
I think that our society, the goals they set for women has a lot to do with it. Up until a few years ago, women were supposed to stay home and do housework and cook, and you really didn't have many career options. And so they immediately accepted what was told to them and did what many of the leaders need to be. Golda Meir and Margaret Thatcher, both very aggressive women, and aggressiveness is a quality that is not admired in women, and yet for men it's one of the first things that they should become when they reach manhood.
Okay, all right.
And I think that's needed.
Let's get our other third distaff member of the distaff side.
I think that women can add a really lot of beneficial ideas and
So do I.
to
I really
politics.
mean it. I really do. I believe that women are
politics.
very nourishing. I believe that women are very pro-peace in organizing their thoughts. They're always looking to make things better and in terms of people. Why don't we elect a woman? Why did Geraldine Ferraro do so poorly in the last election?
Because it was a first. It was the first time a woman ran for, a presidential office. But I think that in the future we're going to see a lot more women running. And I mean, a long time, a couple years ago, it would have been unusual to see a woman in Congress, or But today it's becoming more and more common, and women are showing that they really have a lot to add to politics.
You guys are 16, 17, 18 years old. Do you think you're going to see in your lifetime the emergence of a black president, a Jewish president, a Hispanic president, or vice president? Do you think so, David? Do you think that's going to happen?
I think, of course, there's a possibility for this happening. Within the near future, I personally don't think so. I don't think the American public is ready for such a change. I think right now we're at the type of society where, given TV as an example, someone like President Reagan, while I personally agree with his policies, is obviously going to be benefited by the fact that he looks good on a television set or something. And the American public is receptive to this type of personality, whereas someone like a black person or a Hispanic might in fact have difficulty, not because they don't look good on television, but because they're not as appealing to the rest of the population just because of their color and so on. And I think in my lifetime I'll see something like that happen, and I have little doubt that this will come about because obviously great barriers are being gone over with Mr. Jesse Jackson running for president. But I think it'll be a while still.
It'll be a while still. I can hardly wait to the day that we're going to become color blind, until the time we can just evaluate a person on the basis of what he or she says and does and has in their background. Jack, let's introduce you a little bit. What are your views about this? Do you think we're going to see that kind of a president?
I think we will, but I think the reason it hasn't occurred recently is because of the fact that America is basically a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant type of society, and we can see that basically because of the fact that, you know, our country was founded by the Pilgrims from England, and indeed, you know, that's been a cultural attribute of our heritage for some times, ever since the beginning of our society.
Our society has suffered a lot of difficulties of late. I mean, I'm talking about the assassinations of JFK and of RFK and of Martin Luther King, and I'm wondering about the effects of Watergate. Do you think we've overcome some of that difficulty? Ben, how do you feel about that?
I think that not at all have we overcome it. I think that disillusionment that has come from the idea that especially from Watergate, that our leaders aren't infallible anymore. That since that illusion is gone, that might be a reason that a lot of people don't care anymore. People say, well, Nixon was a crook. Perhaps they're all crooks, and perhaps it doesn't matter who I vote for. That's the impression I get from a lot of people that don't vote. It doesn't matter, you know, they're all bad.
They're all bad.
And that's what started, I think.
How do you feel, Andrew?
Well, with regards to what you were saying about, do you think that the politicians of today are really earnest in what they're trying to do? I, for one, you know, we're talking about locally, you know, in the states, in the race for the Senate. There was a going on between State Senator Ed Davis and the wiring and the taping
with Bobby Fiedler.
Right, right, and you know, here we have someone who's running for office, accusing another person of being a felon, and eventually those charges were dropped. But it's really something very injurious to someone like Fiedler to do something like that in the middle of a campaign. And I don't think that to answer your question, the wishes of every politician in society today are all that, you know, sincere. It's more of just trying to accomplish one's goals.
I'm amazed when I read about what's going on down in San Diego with Mayor Hedgecock, and the fact that he's being brought up on charges. The charges are pending. It looks very dim for him, and then he's elected. He's reelected to the position of mayor. What happens to cause him to be reelected, do you think?
Well, I think the more exposure that especially city politicians and things like that have to the people's eye, whether it be good or bad, just gives them the more increased chance of getting elected. Like the politicians who do like an average job and don't get mentioned that much in the media, I think is the people we should really have in higher forms of office, but they don't get mentioned and therefore they don't get as much publicity.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts about this, David?
Well, I would just comment that I think what he was talking about is very true in that fact. Someone like Mayor Hedgecock, he was in the limelight, and when you look at someone, a person off the, you know, not necessarily off the street, but someone that doesn't follow politics, but feels maybe I'm gonna vote anyhow, goes down to the office and sees suddenly, well, he goes down to the voting booth and he sees Hedgecock on the ballot. Now he might know all these implications around this, but he knows the name, and just that in itself might just prompt him to say, well, you know, obviously he's in the office now, I know the name, I'll check it. And, you know, I think that could be a cause for what happened. And I think often people are misinformed, and I think just this publicity, like Mike was saying, attributes to this fact.
I really like the quote which states, "The Constitution belongs to the living generation." Panel, why are politics and politicians seemingly so remote from our purview? Why do you think that's happening? Heather?
I think, once again, it has a lot to do with the media. You would think that because we have so much media coverage of politicians and campaigns that it would bring it closer to home. But I think what it really does is it makes kind of a demigod out of the person who's running for election, and it makes them seem so high above on a pedestal that we can't even reach them. We can't let them know what we want or what we feel.
And they even know, I mean, you start seeing some of these movies and they know, the PR people, the advertising people know how to make that happen.
Right.
By virtue of the way you dress, by virtue of the way you answer the questions, by giving you a certain kind of joie de vivre.
It's so hyped up that you can't see the real person behind the campaign face. And so people don't even know what they're really voting for lots of times.
But they do know that they're voting for a really handsome guy
Right,
who
exactly,
really looks
yeah.
like my dad, or maybe the image of my dad. Those pictures are placed behind the president or the candidates, let's put it that way, with great attention. The American flag is hanging at a certain kind of level. The coloring on the suit is of a certain nature. Do you think the media is making the candidates, or do the candidates really have the message that they want to tell us? Andrew?
Oh, absolutely. The media is in total control of what will happen in various campaigns and races. And from the experience that I've had, I found that many politicians try to make really close ties with various people from newspapers and from television stations, because if they don't, the coverage will be very poor. You know, when you're cross-examining someone on a live show, the anchor people usually feed in questions, and I've seen things happen where they have been it does matter a lot. The media plays a large role.
Yeah, the other night Johnny Carson was talking about the good news and bad news about what the media is doing, and he said that the good news is that the Senate is going to be televised. All of the Senate sessions are going to be televised. And the bad news is that all the sessions of the Senate are going to be televised. So, you know, certain kinds of problems that can result. Do you think the media makes the candidate?
Yeah, I do. I think in today's society, the only things that sell are things that are attractive and appealing to the public. So they're going to do everything they can to make a candidate seem really upstanding. And, I mean, if we look at it today, someone like Abraham Lincoln, who wasn't good looking at all, would probably not be elected because he wasn't outgoing and a glamorous type. And he didn't, you know, he didn't have a public relations firm to sell him as a person.
You're 18. You're the only 18-year-older and the only one that can vote right now on this panel, You're the oldest one. You're our senior citizen, Leslie. Would you vote? Are you happy with what President Reagan is doing right now in his office?
I'm not really happy with what President Reagan is doing right now.
Why?
Because I think a lot of times his priorities aren't in the right place. I think he needs to focus more on what the American public wants and not making a really important name in the history books. I think a lot of times he overlooks the public.
Jack, are you happy with what President?
I'm extremely happy with what Mr. Reagan's doing. And Leslie,
I think we found our Democrat and our Republican gang. I think we have.
Leslie said that Mr. Reagan doesn't take into consideration the view of the public. And I don't see how she can say this when, in fact, Mr. Reagan is the most popular president that we've had in an extremely long period of time. And so, therefore, Mr. Reagan is obviously tailoring to the ideas and the needs of the public.
Okay, now let's pretend that we've got the president right here. He has just walked into and he sat down right next to me, if he can find a little room. And I moved over, and the president is with us now. And if I were you, Mr. President, David, what would you say to him? If I were you,
I would probably say that, you know, I would continue on with the policies he's taking. I'm obviously an avid fan of Mr. Reagan's. I think part of his popularity has to do with the media, as we were discussing earlier.
Yeah.
But I think Mr. Reagan also looks at it from a different standpoint. I think while people question his policies, you've got to look at the actual outcomes of much of what has happened. I mean, you look, Baby Doc, the man from Duvalier from Haiti, was taken out of office. You know, one of the worst dictators of our time, along with Marcos. And while this cannot all be attributed to President Reagan, obviously some influence did come from that.
Okay,
and I'd say, you know, he's doing quite well there.
Ben, if I were you, Mr. President, I'd
lighten up a lot with. When it comes to politics, I think that Mr. Reagan takes a very simplistic attitude. That's why I don't think that just because he's a popular president in the polls, it necessarily makes him the best president. I think that
What would you like him to do? If he were sitting here, what would you say to him?
I'd say, Mr. President, in your speeches, when you deal with the rest of the world, you represent our country, and you can't be so arrogant as to believe that we can boss around the rest of the world. We can't go name calling. I mean, even that's true on every level of relationships. If you are going to be dealing with an opposition, you don't call them names. And I don't see any reason for doing that.
Okay. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, my feel is, while the points that Ben has made
He's sitting here next to me. What would you say to him?
I would say keep up what you're doing with regards to your foreign policy, because I feel that during his day as president, he has improved our image, I think, across the globe. He's projected us as a much stronger country, a more unified country, and someone that can't per se be pushed around by someone. You know, if you notice, when he went into office, the hostages were released from Tehran, and I don't think that was just a coincidence. I think he projects a very good, strong image, and as we've been talking about the media consciousness of our society, he has everyone, or the majority of the country,
When we think of all the major issues confronting our political leaders each day, it's amazing we have a relatively peaceful and civilized world. In order for us to get back in touch with our government, perhaps it's important to reinstate the town hall concept where the politicians can make direct contact with the community. We need more fireside chats. We need to feel more connected. Our wonderful democracy will continue only if we pay close attention to those who lead us and to what those leaders say. We cannot vote for someone and then not pay any attention as to how we're being represented. A silent majority is simply not being governed by the people. Panel, you've been simply marvelous. I appreciate all your input. For Teen Talk, this is Joseph Feinstein saying we'll see you very